Hey, one more thing before you go. What does it mean to create a life of alignment and fulfillment? How can we blend spirituality, mindfulness, and mindset work to help us break free from the cycles that hold us back? You're in luck because today I'm joined by a guest who embodies the kind of deep, engaging, and thought provoking discussions we love to have here on the show. Stay tuned. We're going to answer those questions and many more. I'm your host, Michael Hirsch. Welcome to One More Thing Before You Go. Daniel Anderson is a holistic success and legacy coach who guides people through personal transformations, helping them break free from burnout, disconnection, and limiting patterns to create a life of purpose, which is what we all want, and alignment. Passionate about exploring everything from pop culture to the greater mysteries of life, Daniel combines spirituality, mindfulness, and mindset work to uncover profound insights into human connection and the broader mysteries of existence. In this episode, we're going to discuss Daniel's powerful framework like the legacy method and how they can help you step into a more meaningful, authentic life. Plus, we're going to explore breaking free from inherited patterns and redefining success that can pave the way to a purposeful legacy. If you're ready for an engaging and inspiring conversation that leaves you with actionable insights, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome to the show, Daniel.
Thank you for having me.
Uh, what an what an amazing journey your life has taken, and where you've come to now.
It sure has been quite the ride. Um, from being the youngest of 8 children and not really finding my voice or knowing I had a message or a voice, to be honest with you, um, to finding my true purpose in life and now helping other people discover theirs and guide them on their journeys as they grow and learn.
That's a big family. I had an older sister, younger brother, and that in itself was enough chaos. I can't imagine being with eight.
Yeah, it was very chaotic. But since there was such a big age difference, I'm 16, 15, and 14 years younger than my three oldest siblings. So things calmed down fairly quickly. But it was always hectic. We had a lot of fun, though, and especially around the holidays when we would all get together.
Now that I can relate to. We overall we have a big family. My grandmother, on my mother's side, she had 9 kids. So when we got together for family events, there was like, I don't know, 60 everything: kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, cousins, you name it. Everybody showed up, and we took up like the whole block almost. It was a lot of fun.
I always loved that.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Made for great football out in the front yard. Made for great baseball games. And made for great basketball games. But you had to get in line first to get to the food. I will say that. That kind of
Sounds
thing.
familiar.
So, where I like to start at the beginning. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in a suburb of Milwaukee, Wisconsin called Wauwatosa. And the house I grew up in, as it turned out, was really haunted.
Now that's cool.
And I, on many occasions, have seen spirits growing up, as well as several other family members have in that house. And I've had the opportunity to hear some stories from a couple of people that lived there after I did, and they were experiencing much of the same thing.
And I think we
Uh,
need to explore that just a wee bit more. I think anytime anybody goes up in a haunted house, we have to change direction just a wee bit.
no problem.
How old's the house?
1940 40s to 60s, I think it was built
Somewhere
somewhere.
there's about.
So not super old, but then again, for me, it feels like 1980 was 20 years ago.
Yes, I can relate to that statement very much so. So, what was your first experience? When did you first experience seeing a spiritual being or a ghost or anything like that?
First time was between ages of 7 and 8. And what really seemed odd was how it showed up to me. And I always thought I was a little crazy for it, but I was coming down the stairs in the front of my house, and there was a dining room and like a little entryway that connected the dining room and living room. And something formed out of the corner of my eye. And when I looked, it was a black that I can't describe how deeply black it was, a pair of pants. And it looked like there was a body in it, but you couldn't see the body. All I could see were the pants. And they walked from the dining room into the living room and then they disappeared. Scared the bejesus out of me.
I would think it would. I would think it would. Did you ever find out or know whether anybody died in the house or died in the area?
Actually, yes, I do. The family that lived there before us were owners of a bakery that used to be pretty well known. Um, the oh my god, I can't think of the name of the bread. Jaeger, Jaeger
Uh,
Bakery, which was similar to the Wonder Bread we have today. And they owned the house before us, and they had a 16-year-old son named Tim who tragically took his own life in that home.
so unfortunate, but it also leaves it open for unfinished business.
Yep. And then I'm not sure if his mom died there, but shortly after that, she passed away. So I know for sure that there was somebody upstairs, there was somebody on the main floor, and definitely some things in the basement.
Well, as a kid, we see more things than adults do because, in as you know, society and culture, for the most part, at least in our neck of the woods, kind of quashes in that. You saw a ghost, you saw a spirit, and they go, no, that doesn't exist, or no. Did you tell your parents?
Yes, and it wasn't until years later that, I mean, I know they told me back then that I was just seeing things or imagining things because of how little I was.
Hmm.
But my mom really started becoming a believer because when we were home, and I've been home with her plenty of times growing up, obviously, and we would hear stomping around in the upstairs when it was just her and I down in the main floor.
Well,
Um, Timmy would go and steal my mom's keys or her purse, and then she'd yell at them, and they would show back up where she just looked a couple of minutes prior that and they weren't there.
now that's pretty crazy. That
Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of conversations over the years with paranormal investigators and ghost hunters, and anybody that's looking within that realm, psychics, mediums, you name it. The fact that you interacted with that entity the way that you did, your mother enacted with that entity, and it listened to her. That's kind of profound, actually.
Yeah, and it's really funny because when he would make a lot of noise stomping around, and she would finally get sick of it and yell at him, and it would stop immediately.
Oh, that's pretty cool. It's this that in itself, I think, is an amazing. You guys should get somebody like the Ghost Adventures there to kind of really talk to them and get them out in the open.
Well, they're, to be honest, Ghost Adventures, they are fake.
Or I can refer you to somebody that would love to come to your house. That
Well, I'm really, honestly, I'm a paranormal investigator too. It really sparked my interest throughout my life. And starting a few years ago, I started doing it as a hobby. And I'm on my third team now. And hopefully I can reach out to somebody that lives there, so because I want to investigate it myself.
I think I find the most interesting part of that is typically you don't, people will see a dark shadow, people will hear something going on, people will feel it, but to have somebody like your mother say, "Give me my purse back," and the purse shows back up again, or "Stop doing that," and they go, "Oh, sorry." That's kind of a new approach. I like that. I like that. I
Yeah, I
like
should
that.
bring her with me in one of my investigations.
Exactly. Say, I need you to talk to me. I need you to talk to me now. Nothing like a mom, right?
Yep,
Your mom's
exactly.
got to stand up. Oh, that's pretty cool. So you got interested in paranormal investigation from about what age?
I was interested, obviously, growing up, with all the experiences that I've had. There had another one where one of my friends and I were outside and we happened to look up into the attic window and we saw somebody standing in there, and it was somebody around the age of 16. We could see him pretty clearly, but see the boxes that were behind him. And then that was probably when I was about 12 years old. And then in high school, I've had four of my friends and I see a full bodied thing walking down the back stairs, stop, look down at something, turn around, and float back up. And I can tell you honestly that we were all standing outside looking inside the house, and my house was empty because my parents were 3 hours away. So really, I've had an interest in paranormal investigating without really realizing it ever since my first encounter.
Well, I think that sparks the interest in all of us to have a fascination with that or an interest in it to even explore it the way we have. That's what got me into talking to people on this program. And, I've been lucky enough to meet some individuals that really have some amazing stories. Soul Sisters, Sumner had come on here, Chris Sumner, and she came in and was talking about when they went to investigate Maul Barker, and I forgot Maul Barker's kid's name, but where they had the shootout with the FBI and where they ended up dying. And she got into there and she was able to record, and she recorded it was sounded like Ma Barker and her kid in there talking about how they were going to try to rush the police, and her saying, "No, we got to shoot it out here." And it was the most amazing piece of thing that I've heard, because
Wow.
it was you could hear the distinction between a female and a male voice. You could hear them like getting ready for the cops to come in, and yeah, it was pretty profound actually.
It's
She
pretty amazing.
Yeah, she's done things with the Allegheny, was it Allegheny Mental Hospital out there. She's done things actually all over the East Coast and the South. And her and another woman, she's called herself the biker, the ghost biker. She goes and does, because she loves history. She goes and does historical places and then ghost hunts while she's at those historical places. Opened a museum down in Tennessee, I believe.
That is very cool.
So, you said you've had other experiences other than your own home?
I have the one that will always stick with me is I was at my best friend's house and we were in high school and we were in his basement and nobody was home that time either at his house, and all of a sudden we hear the back door opening up, the screen and the heavy door itself, and both close. His dog at the time always barked when somebody walked in the house and would run upstairs, and she did that. But then she never came down, and we never heard anybody else at all walking around or talking or called down to us. and nobody left the house again. So after like half an hour, my friend and I thought that was really odd. So we went upstairs and looked, and there was nobody there. We looked in closets, we looked everywhere, and we started to freak out because we thought somebody was had broken in and was hiding there. So we ended up running out of the house to a different friend's house and got his dad to come over with us and a couple golf clubs just in case. And we all searched the house again, and there was no sign of anybody ever being there.
That's that's significant. I think that I told you I'm a retired police sergeant, and we had a place in the city that I worked in that had burned down 3 times, and a huge hotel actually, and famous hotel actually. And by the third time it had burned down, the second and the third time there were people that had died. So they pretty much abandoned it after the third time, and they've since rebuilt it into something absolutely beautiful. But we used to get calls to there all the time because people would see who they thought was somebody walking around the building. So we'd have the cops walking around looking for somebody in this huge building, and of course, we never found anybody. At least from the paranormal part, we did find people that were kids that were going in there, and
Well,
dare ya, I dare you, and those kind of things. We're just here to see the haunted hotel. That's all we're here for, and things like that. But I unfortunately never had any experiences in there. I wish I would have.
they can be life altering, and it's funny because the reason I started my spiritual journey a couple years ago actually was to become a better paranormal investigator and really tap into the gifts that I had when I was younger because, being little
Yeah.
and when you grow up, you tend to lose some of your abilities or you just block them or whatever. And so I started an internal journey thinking that it would make me get those abilities back and make me better at what I love to do, which was investigating. And it turns out that the journey that I went on went way deeper than that. Um, it led me to my divine calling of becoming a coach. Um, it led me to everything that I've been doing with the business for the last couple of years. It led me to write that book and get, I think, 17 diplomas and certificates in different modalities,
Wow.
mostly in 2023. And I've gotten probably 5 more since 2024. I've pretty much devoted myself now to learning, which is something also weird because I hated school growing up.
I I think we I think we all have. My grades weren't great in high school, but when I went to college and had to pay for it, all of a sudden I was getting good grades. It kind of changes your perspective. Plus, I think the desire for wanting us to learn more comes with maturity, and it comes with our age. It evolves us into something that we want to learn and we want to expand. That's quite an education you built around yourself.
Some of the courses have been just for fun. I've got a parapsychology diploma, a paranormal investigation diploma, one in cryptozoology, and like I said, those were for complete enjoyment. I still got the diploma in distinction, like I did with pretty much everything.
Well, it's. I think that going into this hobby and turning it into something more than a hobby allows you the opportunity to utilize what you've learned in all of those. I've got a friend of mine that actually his podcast called the 13th Floor Podcast, and they do a lot of stories, in interviews, and investigations with cryptoids, and things like that, Bigfoot, and a whole slew of those. opportunities. So, anytime you get opportunity, I think that's a good thing. The spiritual journey that you came to now. I mean, theoretically, let me regress just a minute. I know that you say you have a lot of education, you got a lot of certificates and diplomas. When you left high school, what did you want to be when you grow up? Did you want to go into being a paranormal investigator, or from where you're at now, what did you want to be?
I wanted to be a teacher growing up. I even had my classes registered and picked out and everything, and was getting ready to go to a really, really great university here in Wisconsin. And I decided to screw off one day in high school and skipped out of going to a teacher's assistant position that I was holding. It was for a course credit and a paycheck. But I blew it off and went to the mall instead because I was a dumb 18-year-old. So my dad, who was going to pay for my college at the time, he said that if you're going to screw around for free in high school, I'm not going to pay 20 plus grand a year for you to screw around in college. So I blew my opportunity. And after that, I ended up following in his footsteps in the dry cleaning business, which he had been in. He was in for 71 years and
So
worked actually 3 weeks until 3 weeks before he passed away, which was 2 weeks ago.
I'm sorry about
Um,
condolences for your loss on your father. That's a
Thank you.
long, long career. Wow.
Yes, he would have been 90 years old today, which is a huge part why I wanted to come on this podcast and talk with you on this specific day because I knew it would be something that he'd want.
Well, I'm honored. I appreciate that very much. I think that maybe he's with you at the moment. And have you had any opportunity to try to connect or reach out to him?
I have actually. One of the gifts I found out that I have is using a pendulum. So I can make any of these dangling weights on a string. I can make anything have conversations with me. I call forward angels. I speak to them constantly. I have spoken to my father now, and I'm so thankful for that. I've gotten to speak to him 3 times since his death. And he had told me, because he was never a religious person at all, he had told me, I can't believe this, but God is real. And that's the first thing that he told me. And he said he went in peace, and all he feels now is peace and love. And that's how we're supposed to act. Um, he had been divorced from my mom for close to 30 years after being married for 35. And he had remarried and been remarried for an additional 25 years.
Wow.
And he had said to me a few days, actually late last week, he came and he's like, I'm really sorry for leaving you guys when I did, but it was just time. And he said, tell your mother when it's her time to go to come look for me so we can spend eternity together.
What a profound statement, a message, a heartfelt and hope and love and compassion that he gave you to give to your mother.
And then we had he didn't want a funeral per se, but, we still had a service for him. And then he said, I want to throw a party. And he had told my sisters that he was going to pay for it because all he wants is to be celebrated and to have a huge party. And a huge party it was. There
That's
was, um, I think, around 130 people at the service. And
holy
then
smokes.
I think 99% of them showed up to the party afterwards because of the open bar.
Well, that's a testament to either, well, it could be a testament to both, actually. Open bar and, your ability for your father to connect with the community.
Yes, he really had a very strong legacy. owned two dry cleaners in the inner city of Milwaukee and serviced the some of the poorest people around in our town, and just built relationships with them. We had, employees and former employees show up to his service, customers of his for many years. It's just, it was really amazing to see how many people were there that my father had an influence on.
That's very cool. It's got to be heartwarming for your soul in regard to at least that portion of it. And the it, one more thing before you go is the whole reason. One more thing before you go, being created was based upon my personal life and my career. Because I lost my father at a very young age. I didn't have the opportunity to say goodbye to him. I didn't have the opportunity to say what I wanted to say to him. My mother, the same thing. I lost my mother. Did not have that opportunity. I was with too many people that didn't. I did. I was the last person that they saw, and it was. Can you please tell my wife I love them, my husband I love them, my sons. I'm proud of my sons and my daughters, my grandma, my uncle, et cetera, et cetera. And it gave me the motivation, especially in the beginning of this podcast, was to give people a voice when they didn't have the opportunity to get to say what they wanted to say or do what they wanted to do before losing somebody. So I appreciate your story in the fact that you emphasize that to the viewer, my audience, and my community, that we always have one more thing that we can do. We always have one more opportunity for us. And you got that opportunity presented to you to be able to talk to your father after he passed on, so that you had that connection. You got some answers from him in regard to it. You were able to get some closure, some more. I'm assuming some additional closure in regard to the fact that he is in a good place, that's, I mean, that's thank you for doing that, because you were able to validate something my community is always seeking and looking for.
Yep. So what I've learned now really is there's really no such thing as death. And I've learned this through my spiritual journey too. There's really no such thing as death. It's just transition, because when the Bible had said that God made us in his image, it didn't mean this. Because you look at pictures of yourself from when you're 4 years old to 12 years old to 30 years old to 50 years old, and even more. What you see back in the mirror isn't the same person you saw at those other times, but you feel exactly the same, because that you and me is inside of us, and we are our souls, and they never die. Our bodies may give out and may go away, but that doesn't mean our loved ones do. I can honestly feel my dad standing right behind me right now. And also, my sister took a picture today of one of my brothers and my sister's son from a little diner, and coming swooping across them in the picture are just a rainbow beams of light. And we think that's my dad because the sun was shining from the south, and these beams of light were coming in from the east. So our loved ones, they never leave us. They're always with us. And you are always with our creator, and our creator is always with you. So there's nothing to fear in life. If you have any dreams that you want to go for, don't hesitate and go for them, because you're not alone. You can do whatever you put your mind to. And I firmly believe in the mantra that it's not you'll see it, you'll believe it when you see it. It's you will see it once you believe it. Because where we put our energy is where the focus goes is where the energy flows, and we are the creators of our own doing. And people find that really hard to believe, but yet if you really think about it and you just focus on bad things and the lack of money and the lack of freedom and the lack of time, well, that's what you keep seeing. So maybe if you challenge your limiting beliefs by questioning them if they're real or not and trying to figure out evidence of whether or not it's valid, which generally those negative things are not, then you realize that you create the negative stuff. So start thinking about the positive things and the things that are coming to you, because once you know they're coming to you and once you ask for them, they will come to you.
I agree with you. I think that we as human beings are innately always are seeking answers, and we're always seeking approval. We always want approval from someone or somebody. Even within ourselves, we're looking and seeking approval. We also want to understand life from the perspective of what we have and what we don't have. It's just, I think, built into us from the time we're children and as we grow up. I agree with you when we start learning that we need to be grateful for what we have and what we are in present, that it allows and opens the door for more to be presented to us in a very positive way. Because I appreciate what you said about the lack of. I think too many people focus on, and I'm guilty of it not, as well. I slip back into those old modes like everybody else because we're human. We're always focusing on what I don't have and not what I do have.
Hmm.
And is that where your legacy method was born from?
Yes, absolutely. And it has to do with learning to take personal responsibility and accepting responsibility for everything you do in your life. Uh, the next phase of it, because legacy is an acronym, so it's learning to take responsibility, and then it goes into examining the subconscious mind. Let me go back here. L is for leveraging responsibility and ownership. E is taking a deeper examination into the subconscious mind and kind of goes into the limiting beliefs and why we think the way we do. G in the legacy is growing new belief systems, which is challenging your limiting beliefs and autopilot behaviors that are keeping you stuck. And it will help you replace the outdated definitions and societal definitions of success, what your self worth is, and your happiness. And it aligns you with your beliefs and true values and aspirations. So then we go into A in legacy, which is align values with actions. So it's a way to ensure that you show up daily, or how you show up daily reflects your true priorities. And we also get into the fact that success doesn't mean much if it doesn't align with your purpose and what truly matters to you. And then it's in that part of the program where you're going to bridge the gap between who you are now and who you are destined to become. Because everybody here is here for a purpose and a destiny, and it's just it takes a little nudge sometimes to figure out what it is. Um, the C in legacy stands for cultivating fulfillment, and we do that through the 6 human needs. And basically, it's a kind of a psychological portion of the program too, um, where you learn to fulfill the 6 human needs of certainty, variety, significance, love and connection, growth and contribution in healthy ways rather than destructive ways. Um, and Y is stands for your emotional mastery. and it's basically teaches you to navigate challenges and build your resilience with presence and clarity. Because when you become a master of your emotions, you no longer react out of fear or react from past wounds. You respond with intention and become the conscious creator of your life.
which is something I think we all need to try to strive for. Um, you have a passion for exploring life's mysteries, and I'm saying that out loud because I think even bringing up the paranormal and the spirituality perspective of paranormal, we all, every one of us, unless you've really experienced it yourself and have like firsthand knowledge of experience, really want to know what's out there and how we fit into it all. Do you think how do you incorporate the curiosity about the universe into your coaching or what we just talked about when you bring it there and your experiences with all this?
Well, for me, what really led everything and where I try to come from is we all some I'm sure all of us, I know I spent most of my life just thinking, is this all there is to life? What else is out there? I know I'm meant for more, and why am I stuck in this? And that comes from our higher self who knows our higher purpose. And, you know, people may get uncomfortable calling it God, but God and Allah and the universe and the creator and source, it's all the same thing. It's in my studies,
Right.
there was an ancient text, the Tao Te Ching, and in it says the Tao, which is, the source of creation, the Tao that can be named is no longer the Tao, which means basically putting a label on God doesn't make it more or less God than if you call it Bob. Um, and also, how I've heard this said too, where you can't get wet from the word water. So you're what you see in life and what you label things are not exactly what they are. It's how you perceive them. And you could be totally crazy and point at a tree and tell somebody that's a that's a rock, but it doesn't change the fact that it still is what it really is and doesn't exactly have a name. If that makes any sense.
Well, it does. I think in society and culture overall, we give a designation for things just so we have a better understanding of what we're looking at or what we're feeling or what we're touching, what we're eating, what we're watching. And I think that we we can accept what that is because that seems to be the societal norm, or we can question what that is. And then there's a balance in between. We've grown up knowing that what's out there in my front yard that has got bark and is growing in the ground and it's got leaves and branches is a tree. That's what we've been told. That's what we've always been told, that it's a tree. But in reality, it's hard as a rock. You hit the bottom of the trunk, it's hard as a rock. So,
Mm-hmm.
so I think that our perception of things can also be governed by society. I mean, even we talk pop culture on this podcast as well on this show, and I think that even pop culture has an opportunity to give a different perception to people. Look at social media these days and the messages that are being portrayed, and what's normal and what's not normal. With somebody, what we think may be normal and not normal, but in each instance, somebody believes in it to be normal. Some people believe in it to be not normal. Um, do you think that even with that, do you think that like your legacy program helps us to have a deeper understanding of the aspects of ourselves and the connection to the world?
Oh, Absolutely. The way I run my programs, uh, I try to I strive to do a take a holistic approach, the mind, body, and spirit,
Yeah.
and really everything will change on your outer world once you get a handle on the inner world, because what you have inside of you, be it trauma or anything like that, uh, expresses itself in the outside world.
Yep.
So, learning resiliency and mindset shifts and everything um, changes how you see everything. And that reminds me of one of my favorite quotes from Dr. Wayne Dyer is when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And when I first started my journey, I wasn't really sure what that meant even. But now, with the profound connection that I've got with my spirit guides and angels and everything else, and all the messages I keep receiving, um, things have started to look different in my life. I know if you ask anybody that knew me even 3 or 4 years ago, say I'm a completely different person now because of how I've grown internally and how I've gotten in touch with my spiritual self and my higher self and surrendered as much as I can up to this point to the greater good and whatever our creator is designing for me, and I'm trusting the process, because that's actually a message I get all the time. Trust the process and trust God's plan. And once you really let go and start to put your trust and faith into a higher power, whatever you consider it to be, it's absolutely life changing.
Uh, I know that you have mentioned in some of the stuff that I have researched on you and the information that I have was given to me. You yourself had to overcome trauma within your life in order to reach the spiritual perspective that you are at now. Is that trauma outside of seeing a dark pair of pants walk through your house?
Yes, I was actually harshly abused growing up. Of course, back in the 70s and early 80s, it was just discipline or spanking. Um, some of it went overboard, so some of it, was from family. I was horrifically bullied growing up, so I had a lot of mental trauma and some physical abuse. Um, and that scarred me for many years and led me to just believe in myself that I was worthless, that I wasn't going to make it, that I wasn't going to do anything right. I had that little inner voice in my head that would scream at me at high volumes constantly, telling me how worthless I was and how, that I was a failure and just settle for this and settle for that. So I settled for very low paying jobs pretty much most of my life, doing what I thought my father wanted me to do and what society deemed necessary for me to do. Um, then I snapped out of my haze. I guess you could really, the way I look at the movie The Matrix now, it's almost like a documentary with action sequences, because we are so wrapped up with our ego self and the way things appear
Yeah.
and that negative voice in our head that once you let that go, your eyes finally are open and you can see what the world really is.
I think that's an enemy that a lot of us have to fight is allowing those kind of emotions to be released and let go because they stop too many people from moving forward in a positive way. Have you been able to, you and your father been able to kind of clear the air with that and help you get through some of that?
Yeah, I'm still grieving a lot. Um,
Understandably.
but
Understandably.
I've actually, one of our conversations we had, I was able to tell him some stupid things that I did when I was younger and apologize to him for it. And he accepted my apology, thankfully, because that's all he is now, is love. And so I was able to clear the air after he was gone. I wish it would be
Yeah.
with him sitting in front of me, but you know, really, you don't need to go to a psychic or a medium or even delve into that world yourself to discover if you have gifts or not. If you talk to your loved ones after they go, they will hear you. And if you are able to just center yourself and focus on breathing and quiet the inner a hole that we all have in our head and start to listen for the good, you'll hear them. They'll talk back.
Yeah. What a profound opportunity that was that you had in order to be able to help clear that air, because a lot of people don't understand that you do have that opportunity after someone's passed to be able to reach out and do that. You just have to recognize the signs and listen. Feel it in your heart and listen.
Absolutely.
I think we can all take a lesson from that. Um, in in overcoming that kind of trauma and in breaking the inherited patterns that we bring forward, I believe in intergenerational trauma as well. I was introduced to that term about 3 years ago with a doctor that I had interviewed on the show, and I brought him on the show a couple of different times. And I had never thought about it before then, up until the time that I'd interviewed him. I never heard about it. And I was a domestic violence investigator for my whole police career, but in specific at domestic violence task force. That's all we did for about 4 years. And understanding any kind of domestic situation, whether it be emotional or physical, that kind of trauma sticks with you and creates a PTSD kind of a situation. You don't have to be a soldier to be PTSD. You don't have to be a cop or firefighter or a doctor to have PTSD. You can have it with any kind of traumatic incident and I'm not teaching you because I mean, and understand this. This is for anybody that's listening. It can be any traumatic situation that leaves an effect on you so badly or negatively that it doesn't allow you to function in a very positive way or move forward from something because of it. So, do you think that what you just spoke about in regard to the spirituality, to listening and the talking, do you feel that what advice would you give to someone who has experienced that, especially with a family member or a loved one, and how they should approach that and getting it resolved? That's a long question. I'm sorry.
No, no worries. Best answer is forgiveness. They need to start by forgiving themselves, and that's it's a lot of shadow work, and all that really is examining things deep in your soul and saying the things that happened were not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't deserve the trauma that you underwent, and it's all part of the plan. As stupid as that sounds, I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't go through my traumas. But basically, what you really need to do, you need to forgive, and you forgive the person. You don't even have to say it to them. You just say, "I forgive you, I love you, and I release you now," and just let it go. It sounds like, I'm sure some of the listeners would be like, "Oh, come on, that sounds really impossible. How can I forgive somebody?" It's not about forgiving them. It's about bringing peace back to your own life, because letting these generational things and these patterns and old traumas and old abuse and everything linger, all that's doing is holding you down and keeping you back and keeping you from where you belong and what you should be doing. So the forgiveness part is to forgive yourself, and also, while forgiving them, healing yourself by letting it go.
That's some good advice. That's some good advice. And in your coaching career, has it ever overlapped into your spiritualistic perspective? Have you gotten messages from anybody else that maybe you were working with somebody and messages had come through, or you felt a presence or something that needed to be said?
Not in not particularly, really, but basically the messages that I do get for myself can, in a lot of ways, go to towards anybody else, and that's, trust the process, trust the purpose, trust God's plan, um, forgive yourself, and the biggest thing is the one true power in our universe is love, and love can overcome anything.
That's a fact. It sounds like a cliche, but it's a fact. It's one of those statements that's been around for eons, and uh, you hear it all the time. You see it in the movies all the time, and see it in TV shows all the time. But in reality, yeah, it means a lot.
Because yet, people do consider it a cliche, so they just keep on holding on to the hate and the anger and the,
Unfortunately,
yeah. It's a cliche because it's true.
it is
And
true.
I never thought that either. I was one of the biggest non-believers and angry people that you could possibly have ever met a few years ago. I was lost, I was angry, I was depressed, I was suicidal, um, and just when I changed my perspective from the inside and forgave my inner self, that's when everything else changed.
I I think that everything that I have learned, what you just that statement you just said in yourself, that we have to look inside ourselves and work on ourselves in order to have a better perspective of the rest of the world.
Exactly. And there's that saying, nobody's coming to save you. And all that means is
Yeah.
you have to do the work, not on the things around you, because the things that are around you are reflections of what's inside of you. So work on the inside, work on the shadow, forgive your
Yeah.
inner child, learn to love yourself, meditate. It doesn't have to be some sitting on the mountaintop chanting Om. It can just be closing your eyes and focusing on your breath, focusing on different areas of tension in your body and releasing them. That's how I started. Um, Affirmations, they would make fun of that in TV shows years ago on Saturday
Yeah.
Night Live. The Stuart Smalley, I'm good enough, smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me. But once you start writing those down, you start embodying it, and you start,
Yeah.
and another thing that I do that's really helped me grow considerably is every day in the morning writing three things you're grateful for, three affirmations for the morning, three things you want to accomplish during the day. And then in the evening, you write three more things you're grateful for, three more affirmations, and do a checklist of to see if you've actually accomplished any of your goals.
That's some really good advice, I think. That comes a little bit with journaling too. I think writing those down like that, I think it also gives us an opportunity to understand the benefits of journaling and
Hmm.
writing down not just the affirmations, but and what you're grateful for, which I think is extremely important. We said that earlier, but be grateful for where you have and where you're at because there are others. You may not love the house that you're living in, but there are people out there that don't live under a roof. You may not like the food that you're eating, but you have food in your stomach, and there are people that don't have it. Same thing with your job. You may not like the job that you're in, but there are thousands out there who don't have one. You have to be grateful for where you're at and what you have in life before more can come to you. Journaling, I think, is important because it allows us, and I'm just asking for an affirmation in regard to this. It allows us to kind of get our feelings out, whether they be negative or positive, to release them.
For sure. That's absolutely correct. Putting them on paper turns them into a reality. It turns the energy of your thoughts into a real thing in black and white, basically.
Yeah, I think thoughts can be dangerous to ourselves. I believe it. You mentioned earlier about you constantly thought your self esteem wasn't where it needed to be and where it should be as an
Yep.
individual and a human being. Bruce Lee, I love one of his philosophy quotes, is that you never call yourself ugly. You never tell yourself something that you can't do because if whatever you tell your body, your body listens to.
Hmm.
You should always tell your body that you're beautiful and that you're happy and that you're being positive and treat it that way. Treat it with respect. Treat it with the fact that whatever you say to your body's going to listen.
Exactly.
Um, um, we could talk for another hour, but this hour went by really fast.
Sure did.
So you'll have to come back on. We'll have to have some more. We'll have to have some more conversation. I think that we got some more to talk about.
It would be an honor.
I think we'll have some fun. We can expand a little bit more. I think it would be good. In the meantime, let's tell everybody how they can get to you, how to find your book. And I know you got some coaching programs, some one-on-one programs, and how to find your website, please.
You can go to my website, https coachdanielanderson.com. My book is called Stay Focused and Move with the Universe, and it's available on Amazon as a hard copy, a soft cover, or even a Kindle. And if you have any questions about any of the other programs that I have, you can send me an email at daniel@coachdanielanderson.com. And if you want more information on spiritual growth, you can check out my YouTube channel. Just search up the @ symbol, the Soul Searchers Society.
And I'll make sure that all of those are in the link in the bio and on the web page that's specifically built for our episode. It'll be all in there so that they can find you quick and easy. Daniel, thank you very much for coming on the show. I really appreciate your wisdom, your experience, you got to go out and find some more spirituals and ghosts and some more things that you can bring back to me.
I'm hoping to do so soon. We're going to be going on a few investigations coming up in the next couple months, I know. So
I'm looking forward to the evidence. You'll have to keep me updated so I can follow you in regard to your journey with that.
sounds good.
Outstanding. This is one more thing before you go. So before we go, do you have any words of wisdom you can share?
Well, just stay focused, trust the process, know that when you ask for things, they're going to come. It's just the matter of what we consider to be time and what the universe's time really is, which is now, are completely different. So when the time is right, when you will get what you ask for.
Brilliant words of wisdom. I think we should all take heed to that. Again, Daniel, thank you very much. I'll make sure everything's in the show notes and on the web page. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day.
Thank you.
And for everyone in the one more thing before we go, community, thank you very much for being part of this community. Please like, subscribe, share, write me a review. And one more thing before you all go, have a great day, have a great week, and thank you for being here.
Thanks for listening to this episode of One More Thing Before You Go. Check out our website at beforeyougopodcast.com. You can find us as well as subscribe to the program and rate us on your favorite podcast listening platform.